What's going on, my fellow troops? My name is Xavvo and welcome back to a brand new video. So today I wanted to talk about what Modern Warfare 2 does well in terms of mastery, prestige, and all the sorts. And I think we're going to start with just the main camo grind system. I think it's super streamlined. It's not asking you to change up your gameplay too drastically. It's not asking you to mount on a wall 100 times with each gun. It's not asking you to do 100 long shots or anything ridiculous. If you haven't played any prior Call of Duty games, you're probably not going to understand what I'm on about. There might be some people who have played Modern Warfare 2 and this is their first Call of Duty of all time. So basically, in prior years, you might have seen, if you haven't, you should probably watch some people's videos about other previous CODs so you just generally get more of an idea of what I'm on about. But they started to take the route after Black Ops 4 with Modern Warfare 2019, with Black Ops Cold War, with Vanguard. They took the route of basically making camo grinds increasingly more difficult because the demand for a more difficult grind, or I guess with more to do, the demand for that became more and more increasingly high. And what ended up happening was they made it into this horrible just spiral loop where the game became not more like entertaining with lots more to do. What it actually did was made the grinds more tedious, more boring, and it really stripped all fun from the game, which is kind of the main element that people play video games for. It's for the fun, and I think that route was definitely not working very well for Call of Duty. You would have noticed people started to kind of meme Call of Duty and say that it was basically a camo grind simulator, because most people just kind of found that they weren't playing Call of Duty anymore for the fun, and it was just really to give themselves something to do. And I feel like as well as that's still going to be there, and it's probably going to stay there forever, because now I think camo grinding is in its most prevalent moment of all time. I think people didn't really pay too much attention to it before 2018, especially, or 2019, and it's just become this big thing now. I think now the camo grind system is so much more laid back. You might think from a first glance, if you haven't done any guns yet in this game, that it's super easy and you're gonna have every little Timmy or Billy over here in the corner camping with a mastery camo, but it really isn't as simple as you think it is. It's just very different in the way it's laid out, and I think it's actually more efficient, this camo grind, because when you've got 4 specific camos for each gun, it's not asking you to do 4 of those camos on every single gun. It's not asking you to do 100 camos, the same one for every single gun. It's simply just saying, hey, there's 4 designated camos for each gun. They're all individual, all unique to their own weapon, but if you have unlocked that camo, you don't have to unlock it again. You can go to your whole massive weapon camo collection, and you could just stick on one of the camos you actually unlocked from another gun. And I think this is so much more better, because there is so many good camos in this game that even if you don't like the mastery camos and maybe you don't want to go for them, you have 180 plus camos that you can select from. I mean, a lot of them will be very basic. There won't be anything really too crazy or flashy, but there is a great selection of camos in there, either just simple colors, patterns. There's really nice selection in there, and I think that is a great thing to have in this game, just giving people more variety to pick from and not having to make people grind the same camo across 50 guns or something ridiculous. And another thing I want to say is, not only do you have 4 specific camos for each weapon, they're not as demanding, as well as they might take a bit longer, because if you haven't noticed, Modern Warfare 2 doesn't seem to promote very high kill gameplays. If you've noticed, in previous Call of Duty games, you could hop onto shoot house and you could drop an 80 bomb. In this game, 30 kills is almost treated as some insane clutch, because simply getting kills in this game is a lot more slower, it feels, even though the gameplay is so much quicker. And I don't know if that's got something to do with TTK time being a lot slower. It probably is, to be honest. If you compare it to Vanguard, that was incredibly quick, and it kind of defeated the enjoyment or the purpose out of getting kills. You play it to get kills. That's kind of the entire mantra of Call of Duty. It's just killing other players. So I think if you defeat the fun of killing players, then the game is practically not enjoyable. And I think having a slower TTK whilst a fast gameplay has definitely improved the camo grinding, and it's just that in combination with less demanding challenges, it makes it a lot more streamlined and a lot more chilled. And it's not so much the point that it makes it something that anyone can get, but it also makes it so that camo grinders don't have to repeat this sort of endless, tedious cycle where it becomes very washed out and it's the same thing over and over. Instead, it's sort of very varied for different weapon classes. For certain weapons, you have to, go through weapon progression systems from other guns to get a variant of that gun that they're trying to use, or it's just sort of laid out specifically for different weapon classes in its own individual ways, which gives you some slightly different challenges for variation, and it breaks up that sort of repetitive feeling, and it's very cool. And I think one of the best things they've done this year in terms of the mastery camo grind is not only have they just straight on the point, they've added in a 4th mastery camo just straight away, unlike Modern Warfare 2019 where they added the obsidian camo in like season 4 or 5. They actually have added Orion in immediately. It was already a camo straight off the bat with the game's launch. We already had the 3rd mastery camo, which was polyatomic, but we had Orion as well as a 4th mastery camo. Now, whether they'll add more or not is a whole different subject altogether. I do not doubt that they will, because, come on, they've got like a 2-year lifespan on this thing. They're probably going to add even more mastery camos for those hardcore grinders. But yeah, just having a 4th mastery camo in there straight away was definitely a really nice touch up to the game. But that's not the only thing I was actually going to say. The way they've laid out the mastery camos in general for this game actually gives you more of a reason to use each of the camos. If you haven't noticed, in the previous Call of Duty games, once you had finished the final camo pack, you would practically never want to use that final camo because you'd gotten gold and you didn't need to select the final camos in that camo pack. There was no reason to do so because you'd unlocked gold once you'd finished that camo pack. But with this game, once you have finished a challenge for a camo, it doesn't just give you gold. You then have to do a challenge to get gold. So the challenge is unlocked. It's no longer locked or grayed out. You have the ability to do the challenge to get gold, but you don't get gold immediately from finishing the camos prior to gold. And the same goes for platinum, polyatomic. You have a grind for each of those camos. They actually, once you've done gold for all the weapons in a class, it will then say, oh, if you want to use the platinum camo on this gun, you've got to get 25 long shots or something along those lines. I think that's really cool, just to give a challenge to the actual mastery camo, because then it makes you want to use the camos prior to it instead of just ignoring its existence and just selecting the new one on. So I think that's a really, really cool touch-up they had to this game. And what's even better is, outside of the mastery camo grind, we've already said that yes, you can select any other random selection of camos from the huge wide variety that you can get across all guns. But if you do not enjoy the mastery camo grind, or maybe you finished it already, you then have weapon mastery, which goes for every single weapon. We did have this in Modern Warfare 2019, but I think the way they've laid this out is definitely very grind-worthy, and I think it's going to give those hardcore grinders something to look forward to. You actually have individual emblems and calling cards for each weapon. So you get an emblem and a calling card for gold for a specific weapon, you get a platinum emblem and calling card, you get a polyatomic emblem and calling card, and you get an Orion emblem and calling card for a weapon, and you get that for all the weapons. So think about it, 51 plus weapons. There's definitely more than 51 now. They've added a bunch of DLCs in. So if you wanted to go out of your way to get the gold emblem and calling card for a weapon, you can do that, and they will ask you to get a number of kills to get that calling card or emblem, and it gives you something to grind towards. So I think overall, if you get 1,000 kills for each weapon, I mean 1,000 for each individual weapon, you will have all 8 rewards for that weapon. And I think that's just super, super cool to have not only a mastery camo with 4 selections from, which are all really good camos, but then you also have the weapon mastery, which gives you something extra to do. I definitely do think there's probably going to be more mastery camos to come, and maybe they'll add even more stuff. But you've even then got the general sort of calling card grind. If you want to get really cool calling cards outside of the mastery camo for the weapons, you can also do a bunch of different in-game challenges to get tons and tons of rewards. And the game's only been out for so long, it's not been out that long, and we already have different calling cards that you can do throughout the game you can unlock and get rewards from, on top of a seasonal battle pass like we've seen in the prior years. Just having a battle pass as well also gives you some extra content. I think the battle pass was also a really nice touch up to, you know, unlock each thing with your tokens, because you can use them wisely to your ability. And once you've unlocked all 4 items, or 5 items, sorry, from a specific patch, it unlocks another bunch of patches that you can also unlock stuff with tokens, which are earned through playing the game. I just think generally the whole layout is so much better, and I think that also takes me on to the prestige system. The prestige system, in a way, I'm not a big fan of it, and this is probably where my dislike comes in quite a bit. The reason being is I do prefer the classic prestige system, but only to a degree. Once you'd hit level 55, you could choose either to stay on level 55, so it would keep all of your things unlocked, all the items you've unlocked across weapon progression for the different ranks, or you could prestige, which would start from a clean slate. It would basically lock a bunch of stuff. You'll create a class, it would lock a bunch of the things again, and you had to redo it again. Now, whilst I think that was probably the worst part of it, you know, in the past, having to re-unlock everything again, and if you hit prestige and you didn't mean to do it, and let's say you were grinding a weapon and it was locked, that would be definitely a pain in the ass. But I just generally found it was more simple to understand before, just, you know, being like, oh, I've started from a clean slate. The only difference is now if you see my icon, you can see that I'm a prestige higher than someone else of the same level, and I guess I kind of liked that, but at the same time, this is definitely very interesting. Now, there is a cap on the prestige system for this year's Call of Duty, or this year and next year's Call of Duty. We have seen this before, I think, in Cold War and Vanguard, where they add a bunch of new prestiges to the season, and once you've maxed that out, you can't really go beyond that, or maybe you can go beyond it, but it doesn't go any higher than a prestige that it's ended on. It will just say that you're some certain level. I think this is just honestly so much better, the prestige system, in its own way, because now it's like once you've reached 55, you've unlocked everything. You're not going to have everything locked again if you hit prestige, which happens naturally through playing the game. The prestiging, for once, isn't something you've got to go into any sort of ranking area and find a button to click enter prestige. Instead, it does it for you, and I think on top of that, it doesn't actually take away all the stuff you've earned through leveling up. Once you've got all the stuff from level 55 and below, it stays unlocked forever, which is very, very good. And it also makes it so that if you want to keep going up, it's every 50 levels, you get another prestige, and it will read your number as like 300, but it will basically equivalent to something like prestige 4 or something like that. But it'll say you're level 300, you'll have the prestige 4 icon next to it, which is still pretty weird in its own way, but it's understandable. It makes sense. Everyone understands that Prestige 1 is going to be level 55. Another 50 levels, it's another Prestige. I do think before, prestiging felt more like a risk to take over just gaining levels randomly. It actually felt that you had to make the choice to prestige, and if you really wanted to do it, you'd have to put the grind in to get everything locked again. And having a prestige before did feel like you'd actually done quite a lot, because if you were prestige master, someone would think, damn, this guy's prestige 10 times and had to re-unlock everything 10 times. But again, I don't think it really matters. I think going forward, having more prestiges than 10 or something like that, having so many prestiges and the leveling being something that doesn't debilitate your gameplay, it doesn't lock all these stuff for you that other people have unlocked because everyone's at different places. I think that having everyone sort of up to speed with one another and sync, everyone's getting the same number of prestiges for each new season, and everyone has the ability to just play and it doesn't harm your progress. I think that's really good. So there is just generally so much to choose from already in terms of mastery grinds and leveling grinds, whatever you want to do, honestly. And I just think, yeah, it's so much better, and having less levels per weapon is also a great thing, as well as the leveling's a little bit slower in some way. It's not as slow as it was in Vanguard. You have like 16, 15 of them, 20, something like that. Something quite simple, tame, and a bit more relaxed. And I think generally, somehow, the way they've pulled this off is really good. It's very smart the way they've managed to make it simple, but not easy, and it just sort of leaves it so that it's more enjoyable for the player. And a nice little thing I actually forgot to touch upon was the Orion camo. So a lot of people might think, oh no, if I get the Orion camo, like, if I unlock to the point where I'm about to get Orion, do I have to go and grind a bunch of challenges across all 51 weapons to get Orion on each gun? But no, the great thing they've done about the 4th Mastery camo for this game is, once you've finished the polyatomic challenges for each individual weapon, Orion automatically unlocks for all of them. So you don't have to do an Orion challenge for each 51 weapons after doing a challenge for all 51 weapons to get polyatomic. It just unlocks Orion for all of them. And I think updating that was a great move. They made it a lot brighter. It moves a lot quicker than it did before. Before, you had to pretty much like get yourself within like a 1 meter radius from your TV, and you had to stare and squint to see if it actually was moving, or make a point of reference to see where it's moved from, because you couldn't tell. I guess now it's a lot better that it moves, but I would prefer if it moved a little bit quicker and it was a little bit brighter. That's just me, honestly, but it's just great choice, honestly, and I think there's plenty to do this year. That doesn't make the game amazing. It doesn't change the fact that there's bugs, obviously. It doesn't make me an Activision lapdog, because I'm just saying this is definitely a much better system, and I'm having a lot more fun with this camo grind than I thought I was going to do. I was honestly thinking that I was installed for another Damascus 2.0 grind, and that I was going to have to break a sweat doing all the launches, 100 camos, and having to do all that shit all over again, and it wasn't fun. As much as I loved Damascus, the grind was not worth all that hassle for just something like that. It's a nice camo, I do not regret it, but I do think the camos didn't need to be that difficult and that demanding. So just having a much more simple system now feels like a sip of fresh air, and it also means that, you know, if they add so many new DLCs across all of the weapon classes over the years, it then means that you possibly don't even have to do the launchers, because honestly, all they've really said is get 51 weapons done for polyatomic. That's how you get the camo. 51 weapons. It doesn't specify what classes, it's just 51 weapons. So that literally could mean sooner or later, you don't even have to do the melees, you won't have to do the launchers, you can just pick which ones you don't want to do, and you can do polyatomic for whichever weapons you want in the game. I think that is amazing, and it's definitely the way to go. That's about all I have to say. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, guys.